video. Back in the confessional, and yes, we staying lit, big dog. Shout out to my everyday people who rock with me every day. Shout out to my player partner, Lucky Wheels and Deals. Yo, we keep it lit. Like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Make sure y'all like and comment and subscribe to this video as y'all coming in the door. Okay, show some love to your boy. You know, we got a good video for y'all today. This one comes, you know, to me as all the videos. All right. So as I wait for a few of y'all to tap in and say what's up, show your boy some love. Shout out to all the mods who stay putting it down for your boy. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to all the everyday people who rock with me every day. Okay. Because, you know, without y'all, we'll be nowhere. You know what I'm saying? So I want to always show y'all love and appreciation. Okay? So we got a wonderful story where a man's father attempted to take his life. And there's a plot twist into all this. And I want y'all to sit back and enjoy this plot twist. Because, man, you know, from the looks of this story, it gets real deep. It gets real deep. But imagine your own father wanting to take your life. How tragic that may be. Because I got a father, and I couldn't imagine my father betraying me like that. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
So, hey, I'm Rita, and I am driving from Ohio to Georgia this beautiful Saturday morning. I hope that you'll go along with me because that kid right there, that's my son. My son was literally brutally shot by my ex-husband and his they-them partner. He will never walk again according to the doctors because he's a quadriplegic now, and he will never speak again according to doctors. I don't believe that, but you know, I have faith in God, but this is what the medical professionals are saying. The story behind this grand finale is what's even more interesting, and over the next 10 hours I will share with you the entire story from beginning to end to allow you to understand how my son ended up right here. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Definitely bookmark this story because you're going to want to come back for part 2. Hey guys, this is part 2 of how my ex-husband and his they-them partner pew-pewed my son, left him for dead.
Y'all heard the plot twist? Her ex-husband's they-them lover pew-pewed her son.
Right now, as we speak, he is in an induced coma. He is paralyzed from the neck down in critical condition in a hospital in Atlanta. I am leaving from Ohio, going to Atlanta right now to be by my son's side. And I want to give you part 2. Now, part 2 is pretty much the genesis story. How we met, how this all came about, and basically leading up to signs that I felt like something wasn't right. So let's call him Damon, short for Demon. And I met Damon in college. I was a freshman coming into the school, and he was a sophomore, kind of like those this is our college tour type of kids, right? Basically, like, he's a sophomore, he's been at the school for a year, and he knows the school a little bit better than the freshmen. He's also on the student union board, engaged in the community, so he was one of the guys. So I met him, and I was like, wow, this guy is so cool. He's like down to earth, and he's like, he knows what he wants. He speaks his voice. And I kind of like people who are assertive, right? So I started talking to him, and I was just like, you know, I really like your vibe. And he was like, I like your vibe too. He was just like, you know, we should really talk. Now, in the meantime, there were other sophomores who was talking to me as well, and they said, listen, be careful with Damon. Be careful with him because he like what you like. He swings for the other side. And I said, okay, let me go ahead and confront this right here, right now, because if he swings for the other side, I'm not discriminating against that, but I don't want to be in the middle of it. At that time, like, I didn't want to be in a lavender marriage. So I went and I confronted him about it, and I said, hey, Damon, like, I hear all these rumors about, you swinging for the other side, and, what's up with that? And he was just like, well, if you should know, I had an encounter with a male that my mom entrusted, who basically, did some things to me inappropriately as a child, and it had me confused about my sexuality. But, that's not something that, I really want to do or be, and it left me with some tendencies. So outside of that, but no, that's not who I am. I'm straight. I'm literally a straight man. I said, okay, no problem. So we continued in the relationship, and toward the end of my freshman year, I got pregnant with him, okay? Now, it was so interesting, you guys, because when he was born, it was a lot of things going on. He was born on 11/11, at 11/11, and his birth weight is 7'4", which is 11. And all of the nurses and the doctors, they were just like cheering because it's Veterans Day, right? And they was just like, this is going to be a special baby. But at the same time where all of the cheering was going on, there was a little sadness because he was born with the umbilical cord wrapped really tightly around his neck. And then also he was jaundiced. So while I was getting discharged from the hospital, he was still in the intensive care unit as a baby. And so once we got out, once we came home, I noticed that Damon really wasn't taken to him, that most fathers. So I just chalked it up like, oh, he's just a new father. So once my son got about 1 year old or so, he would like take his pamper off of him and beat him senseless. And so I would like confront him like, why are you beating my child? Like he's a baby. And he was just like, he needs to understand discipline. He needs to understand who, what, where, when, and why right now, and he needs to understand who's in control. And I thought that was just really strange. And so toward the middle of my junior year, he was just like, we need to get married. But because, of course, I am a PK, which means I'm a preacher's kid, and he's in the Christian church. And so he just said to me, like, I dare you to marry me. Not like, I love you, I want you. It was like, no, I dare you. But basically like manipulation, like, you need to marry me. And I really tussled about this because I just felt like your instinct, like, trust your instincts, ladies. Trust your instincts, period. Because I had this feeling in the deepest part of my gut, like, don't marry this man. Do not marry him. So, against my better judgment, my whole family is around. They're there. His family is around. We get married. So toward my senior year in college, I'm finishing strong. I get pregnant with my daughter. So I'm like, okay, I'm having a boy and a girl. I'm done. Like, no more kids, because I didn't want to have kids that early, but I also didn't want to have multiple kids with a whole lot of different men. So I said, same man, both kids, we're good to go. Now, everything is going cool. I have my daughter. Now, he wasn't as harsh on my daughter as he was on my son. And he continued to be really, really harsh on my son, like, throughout our entire marriage. Like, I would call the cops on him, like, harsh, right? Because it was ridiculous, right? It was way too much. And so I got to the point where I'm just like, I'm going to divorce this man. I'm going to divorce him, but I did not know, as a domestic violence victim, like, exactly how to get out. Because I knew he was manipulative. I knew he was controlling. I knew his schedule. So I knew that there was a way that I could get out, but I still wasn't clear on what my escape plan was going to be. Now, what happened was, I was working for the newspaper, Gannett USA Today newspaper chain. They have newspapers all across the country, not just USA Today. And I was working for the newspaper, and my beat editor, she told me, she was just like, go ahead and go home. You've been working a whole bunch of hours, so just go ahead and take a rest. I went ahead and I took a rest, you guys, and I went home and I saw another car in my parking lot, and I was like, wait a minute. So I go into the house, and there's all of the lights are off in the house. All of the lights are off in the house. And I go down to my room, and this is what I saw. Save this video for part 3 because you are I pull up. I'm Rita. This is my son right here. This is the one who is laying in the hospital in critical condition because his father and his father's boyfriend literally had an altercation and pew-pewed him. He is in critical condition, in very serious conditions. This is my baby girl. This is my daughter. If you follow the story and just pay attention to what's going on, like, I wish people are saying you're clout chasing off your son. No, I need to bring awareness to craziness that there may be some woman out there that's getting ready to make the most worst decision in her life about a man that she's getting ready to get with, and she hears my story and she be like, ooh, I need to dodge that bullet. The internet is not all about clout chasing and all that other kind of stuff. This is a real life, real heart, real human situation. And it's so unfortunate that people have the time to make up stuff. I just move around, because that's not this. Like, if you really want to know what's going on and you really want to know a real, true story, stick around, friend, follow me. Add one of these photos or one of these videos to your favorites, and just stay along for the ride, because the story is deep, it's crazy, it's unimaginable. So there are people who ask if he has a GoFundMe. Yes, he does. And if you go to GoFundMe, it's AKIL, first name, SEARCY, last name, AKIL SEARCY.
If y'all want to donate, I'm gonna put it in the description.
I can't put a link in the bio because we're not there yet. Okay, I'm just a mom telling my story, and people ask, do I live in Atlanta? What's going on? No. If you go out and look at my car right now, everything that I could grab, I grabbed it. Literally moved my entire life. My whole life is in a car right now. And I told you guys that I'm driving from Ohio to Atlanta. I'm here cold. Like, literally. Like, I'm in an Airbnb, you know what I'm saying, for a couple days, literally just out here cold. So no, this is real time, real life. So if you want to troll, whatever, I'm not even paying attention to that. But if you want to know this full story, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to stick around. Because this is, when I tell you this is, if it were not my life, I would be like, this is a Lifetime movie. But it is my life. Unfortunately, it is my life. And it's his life. And it's her life. So if you want to go around and look for fake stories on TikTok, this ain't one of them. Unfortunately, it's not that. So that's the housekeeping. I'm not going to dress trolls and stuff like that no more. But this is literally a mom to a mom. Hi, I'm Rita, and this is my son. My son was pew-pewed by his father and left for dead, and this is part 3. So I came home, I saw the car in the parking lot. I knew it was not my car. I knew it was not his car. And so I absolutely knew somebody was in the house. The house was completely pitch dark, so we did have a basement, so I went down to the basement. I opened the door, and I literally saw him having sex with a man of God, basically a pastor in the city that we're all familiar with, and I completely froze. I froze because I thought about the conversation that I had with him when we were in college. In that conversation, if you had not seen part one or part two, is that I asked him, I said, are you interested in men? If you're interested in men, like, don't bring me into your stuff. Like, I'm not trying to be in a lavender marriage. Like, I really, like, if you want to live that life, live that truth. But you're not just living that truth, you're literally having intercourse with a pastor that we both know. And he looked at me as just like, just don't tell nobody. Just keep this on the wraps. Keep this on the wraps. And the only thing I could say at that moment, or muster to say at that moment, is, yeah, it's over. We're absolutely getting a divorce. And I left the house. And so at this time, this is when a lot of the domestic violence began to happen. This is around the time where a lot of the threats begin to happen, because now I'm threatening his ability to keep his cover, right? Because he's supposed to be seen as this Christian, good family man, with a solid wife and a solid family. And basically me divorcing him completely shatters this image. And then it also possibly exposes the pastor that he just slept with. A couple days after that, I spiral into the most horrible depression I've ever seen myself in. Like, depression bad, like wondering, how could I make this decision? How could I make this mistake? The pastor came back to me and was just like, just cover him. Just, this is really not that difficult. Like, basically, we can work this out. And no, we can't. No, we cannot work this out. Like, this is deception. This is deceit. You are a man of God. Like, you're a pastor. Like, it's a lie. So I need you all to know that there is another part of this that is very pivotal, and it literally sets everything up for what happens next. Damon is a very, very, very money-hungry type of guy, okay? He will use anybody and anything for money. Remember that I said that. Okay. And so in our relationship dynamic, I was the one who was working all of the time. I was the breadwinner. I was the one always making sure that the family had everything. I paid the bills. I paid the rent. And so me divorcing him also means that his money ticket is now taken away. So that is where the biggest of this story comes into play. Stay tuned for part 4. The real part 4, not housekeeping part 4, 4.1. Hi, I'm Rita, and this is my son. He was pew-pewed by his father and his father's boyfriend, and this is his story. This is part 5. We both decided that it was time to basically not be together. Well, at least I was just very adamant about not being with him. And he said, well, let's go on a quick family trip out of town, about an hour or so, just to kind of have a family fun time before we break it to the kids that we're not going to be together. We get about 30 minutes into the trip and we get pulled over by the police. Now, I'm really confused because there's nothing wrong. We were not speeding. Tags was not expired. Like, car was registered. Insurance was paid. So we were trying to figure out, why is the police stopping us? The police, now, when the police stops you, it's just like a random traffic stop. It's usually like one cop or 2 cops, right? So when the police get behind us, there were about 5 cop cars just like right after that same police, as if there was like something really bad going on. So the police approached the door and they told basically everybody that could. The kids were small, so of course, they can't get out of the car. But they pretty much told us, get out the car, put your hands up, basically like, pull, put your hands behind your back. Come towards us, don't make no sudden moves. And I'm just really confused. And he's looking very like, oh shit, I'm caught. So the cop basically gets my ID, gets his ID. And, they was just like, just confirm this is Damon, right? and just confirm that you're Rita. I'm like, yes, I'm Rita. It's just like, are you married to him? Yes, I'm married to him. And they said, well, we are taking him in right now under felony charges of straw buying. So if you don't know what straw buying is, it's literally as a clean person, registered, getting registered guns, but you're literally purchasing them so that you can give the guns to felons. So I'm like, okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm totally blindsided. Obviously, it was some type of full-on operation at our school. And they did their full investigation and basically said that he was one of the major players. They take him to jail. And of course, literally now I'm visiting him in jail with the kids and stuff like that. Of course, this puts a temporary halt on our divorce, which he's kind of relieved about. But it's basically like, oh, you're going to be, I'm in jail. We're going to work this out, this kind of thing, basically. And I'm like, no, I'm just literally biding my time so that I can figure out how to get this done. So, in a nutshell, he was convicted of straw purchasing. He was convicted as a felon as well. He did get out of jail on bail, of course, I did bail him out again. Crazy decisions that women make when we in relationships that are fucked up. Anyway, bailed him out of jail. So now we're, basically he got out on probation because this was his first charge. And so we were dealing with that. He was just like, I can't work now. Not that you worked before. He couldn't work. He couldn't, he basically like, you need to just stay in this relationship because, how are we going to survive? Basically like him, me, and the kids, now he has this felony charge. And I'm just like, nigga, this is not the time to be trying to gain sympathy from me because, you pretty much fucking in. And, yeah. So he uses this entire situation as a reason for me to stay in the marriage. Of course, I'm just biding my time at this point because I'm really figuring out this is the perfect time to leave because I'm really not about that life. You did this. I'm going to take my kids and we about to get up out of here. Stay tuned for part 6. Hi, I'm Rita. This is my son who was brutally shot during a altercation with his biological father and his biological father's now boyfriend. And this is part 6. Before I get into the details of part 6, I am going to let you know that you are probably and possibly going to judge me like nobody's business. And I understand how it's really going to look like. Girl, are you kidding me? But you know what? I'm going to say this before I get into the story, that I was 22 years old. I was in a relationship with a narcissist sociopath. I was freaking scared out of my mind and trying to make the best decisions that I could under the circumstances. With that said, let me get into the story. So, my ex was basically out of jail at this point, but at this point also, because I was experiencing all of this trauma at this time, I knew it was time for me to escape and literally take my kids out of this relationship. He suggested that I get another job because bills were not getting paid the way they should. He now used his identity as a felon to not even work or get a job. He knew that I was struggling financially. I was the breadwinner in the relationship and I really needed to come up with some solutions. So not even 2 weeks after he got out of jail, I lost my job at the newspaper because I was depressed and I really wasn't writing. I really couldn't think. I really couldn't process information. I really couldn't do the job that I was getting paid for. So basically my editor's like, we're going to go ahead and let you go. Once you get yourself together, you're always welcome to come back to the newsroom and work. So here I am, depressed, nowhere to go. I got 2 really small babies. A man is really not doing nothing for them. He's not working, so I have to work. He came to me one day, a couple days after I got fired from the newspaper, and he said, I have an idea how we can make some money. I was kind of excited because I'm like, good, because I need some help, and, these bills are not gonna pay themselves. So he pretty much was just like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set you up on Craigslist, and then basically, you can, I'll allow you to have men so they can pay you to service them. You know what I'm talking about. And, we can go ahead and pay the bills. And so, like, literally, he was just like, you do not have a choice in this situation because basically, these bills need to get paid. So, ashamedly,
Yeah, why couldn't he do it?
did that. Like, basically, he
Oh,
escorted me out for an entire year. Basically, used that money to hire a lawyer so that I can get a divorce. And I did hire a lawyer. But I knew that before the lawyer served him the paperwork that I needed to get out of the house with my kids. So I applied to Kent State University and I got accepted into their master's program. Also with the master's program, you can get into student housing, which allows you to have an apartment on campus. So I basically got accepted to Kent, went and I took the kids, and one day when I knew he was at work, I literally packed up the entire house and I took the kids and I went to Kent State. Basically at that point we got a divorce. I was awarded full custody of the kids, and he was ordered to pay child support. So once he was ordered to pay child support, of course he was okay with the divorce, but he did not want to pay child support because he was a felon and he couldn't work. So, of course, me and my young and dumb self, I took him off child support. I said, that's fine. I'll take you off child support, but pretty much me and the kids, we live in Kent now. This is our life. I stayed 2 years at Kent University, working and stuff like that, but then I got offered a really, really, really good job in New York. Once I got offered that really good job in New York, I pretty much let him know that I am taking the kids and me and the kids are going to New York. It was at this time he suggested that, hey, I know it's going to be a heavy load on you to take the kids to New York. Why don't you let them stay down here for the summer? You go up to New York and pretty much, set up shop and then come back and get the kids. And this is where all hell broke loose. Stay tuned for part 7. Hello, I'm Rita, and this is my son, who was brutally shot during an incident with his father and with his father's now boyfriend. This is part 7. So I did get the job in New York. He offered to take the kids for the summer just so that I can have a load off and get things set up so I wouldn't have to worry about the kids. And again, at this time, they were really small. So I thought it was a great idea. I went up to New York. I got everything set up. He called me and, he just let me know, I know it's getting ready to time for them to go back to school. Basically, what are your plans? And I let him know that everything is set up in New York and that I was coming back for my kids. I went ahead and I drove back down from New York all the way to Ohio. And once I got to the door, pretty much there were 2 cops meeting me at the door. Once I got to the door, they said that pretty much that I could not see my children because I was being charged with abandonment and neglect of the kids. And I was really confused because I'm looking at him like, what do you mean it's abandonment and neglect of the kids? And he's just like, well, you just dropped them off and, I haven't heard from you in the last 3 months. And it was at that time that I was like, what are you talking about? So the police told us that we would have to go to court and pretty much, figure it out because at this point the kids were in the custody of their father for the last 3 months and no one has known my whereabouts. Even though we had telephone exchanges and text messages between us, they said that I was not physically here and that I just dropped the kids off to his house and just completely left and, like nobody knew what was going on. We went to court, and once we got to court, We got in front of a magistrate in Ohio, and pretty much, I explained to her the situation. Hey, we had basically an agreement between him and I. I got a job up in New York. He, it suggested that the kids stay down here with him for a little bit while I go up there and set up shop, and he held the kids. And basically, I'm coming back to get my children because I have full custody of them. Basically, I had the divorce decree. Like, look, I have full custody of my kids. This is what the magistrate tells me. The magistrate says, Miss Simpson, that was my last name after my, got married. She was like, Miss Simpson, according to Ohio law, if you are not with the kids basically for an extended period of time and the father says that he haven't heard from you, we really want to be sure that the kids are safe. And it's called consistency of care. Basically, what's in the best interest of the children is to stay in an environment that's stable and not necessarily an environment that's not stable. It was at that time that my entire life was basically, excuse my language, fucked to the wall. This magistrate gave my ex full custody of my kids, gave me visitation rights, and then also my ex said, basically thank you for the custody. But also she owes me child support. And I looked at him like, what are you talking about? I owe you child support. He said he told the magistrate she owes me $69,000 worth of child support from when she hasn't paid since she's been up in New York. And according to my income at the time, basically the magistrate awarded him $69,000 in child support. So it was at this time that I completely lost it. If you thought that
For
I was
3
in a
months?
depression when I saw him with the man of God, it was nothing in compared to this, because now you have put me in a place where you're taking my children away and you're also attacking on a bill. Basically, remember, my ex does not like working. I was his money ticket. So basically, he took the children so that he can get money from social service and food stamps and all that other kind of stuff, and literally was going to basically using that $69,000 to float his life so that he wouldn't have to work. And it was at that moment that I lost it. I lost it. Stay tuned for part 8. Hi, I'm Rita, and this is my son right here. And he was brutally shot during an altercation with his biological father and his biological father's boyfriend, his now boyfriend. This is part 8, and in part 8, I am going to literally use every second of this video to allow you guys to get to all of the points leading up to the reason why he's here, so that part 9 can be exclusively why he is where he is right now. So again, from part 7, my ex was awarded $69,000 in back child support, and also awarded primary custody of the kids because I literally left New York to get a job set up. I came back. He pretty much said I abandoned the kids and took them legally. We went back and forth to court year after year, and every year the court pretty much said that because we want them to be in consistent care, we don't want to break their consistency in a home life, so they did not award me back custody of my children. Now, over the years, he was himself, and so he would tell the kids that everything that happens in the house, it's literally going to be in-house. So he would beat them. He would make them use the bathroom outside like animals. He would choke them out to the point where they were peeing on themselves. Just so many things, like horrible things. I knew this. I tried to prove this to the court so that my kids could get out of that situation. The court pretty much was saying that that's not warranted, even though we're seeing these things, we can't, it doesn't warrant it enough for us to pull them out of the house. Once my kids got to the point where they were getting ready for college, especially my son, he made him lock into a mortgage where my son and my ex was on the name of the house. This is the exact same house that my son, this incident happened in. This is the exact same location where he was shot. My son went off to college, and then eventually my daughter went off to college. Everything was completely fine until basically my son had a basically mental breakdown in college. And it was so bad to the point where his father said, maybe you want to come back home. My son did go back home to his dad. And then when he went home to his dad, he had another altercation with his dad. Of course, my son is older now, and so he knows the abuse that he had at the hand of my ex when he was a kid. He's older now, so he's just like, I'm going to defend myself. One day, he got into an altercation with my ex. And pretty much my ex went to go, fight him and all of that kind of stuff like that, just like he normally would. My son grabbed a butter knife. I don't know why a butter knife, but my son used a butter knife to defend himself against his father. His father called the police on my son and literally pressed charges against him for aggravated murder with a butter knife. This is what the police reports are saying, that basically that my son was trying to kill him, and my ex did press charges on my son at that time. My son spent about 1.5 years or so in jail on those charges. My son was recently let go from jail. I want to say about 8 months ago. Once he got out of jail, he did not want to go back to his father's house. I'm just going to reiterate that. That was his total goal. He had a couple dollars saved up, and he also asked family members to get him some money so that he could get an apartment. Once he got an apartment, he was set. Everybody was excited because we were like, good, you're not going back basically into that house of horrors. Life was lifing, and he could not basically handle the responsibility of paying rent and keeping up with things that basically life responsibilities. So it was suggested by his father to come back home. And that is where we're ending up right now. The very next video is going to be about what allegedly happened in that altercation. Hi, I'm Rita. That is my son, and he was brutally shot during an altercation with his biological father and his biological father's now boyfriend. This is part 9. This is basically the story of how my son got into this situation and this condition. God is merciful because I am with my kids now. I'm with my daughter. We are having conversations. I'm learning more and more about what she has gone through. I'm learning more and more about what my son has gone through, and it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. And I don't ask for sympathy for myself because, allegedly I was grown and I made my own decisions. But now, when we're young, we never realize how our decisions will affect our children. We never realize, even if we're young and dumb, like how what we do will affect our offspring and what it could really mean. My son decided that once he got out of jail, he would get an apartment. He got an apartment. Life was lifing. He was not holding up well. It was suggested that he go back to my ex-husband's house, his father. Once he went back to that house, not even a week after, basically being in the house, this altercation happened. It is alleged that it was a setup. It was also alleged that my ex-husband was very angry, and basically they got into an argument in regards to, him going to jail, just a combination of several things that has happened between them two over the years. What we do know is that my son, there was an altercation, there was some type of fight, and my son ended up shot. What we also know is that he was in a hospital in Albany, Georgia, for 4 days fighting for his life by himself. There was nobody else in the hospital with him. It was just him by himself. His injuries were so severe that he had to be care flighted to Atlanta. Once he got to Atlanta, he was pretty much a John Doe outside of them actually knowing his name and his birthday. Once the case manager realized that, she basically said she felt like it was her duty to find the next of kin. After 5 hours of charades, because at this time my son could kind of like speak with his eyes and like nod his head yes or no, she was able to find his Instagram page. On his Instagram page was a picture of him and his sister. She was also tagged in the post, his sister. The case manager literally reached out to my daughter and then let her know that her brother was in the hospital. Once my daughter found out that he was in the hospital, my daughter contacted me. My daughter was there. My daughter is an hour away because she goes to where she works now, but she went to a school close about an hour from Atlanta. She was so she left and she went and she was there with him. I was there with him the very next morning at 7:00 in the morning. I was already in Atlanta, literally racing to the hospital to my son's side. So I wanted to share my son's story not because of me, because again, I made a lot of horrible decisions, as you can see throughout the series, that really did not end well for what the end result is going to be. But I know that there is a young girl probably in a relationship, not with just a narcissist, but a sociopath narcissist who's getting ready to make the worst decision of her life. And I'm just telling you, girl, when you see the sign, just leave early, because the manipulation, the control, the abuse, it just gets worse and horrible. And literally, I brought my children into the craziest, worst situation. And I've also suffered for me being with him as well, because it cost me years of not being with my kids. But God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching this series, and I will be back probably later on so that I can do a live. So if you have any questions, we can just go ahead and hash it out. Thanks.
Let's go. Look up, bad bitch.
So this is the number one question. Was your son not able to come to where you were? Why did he keep going back to that home? So in a nutshell, my ex-husband, from the time they were about 3 and 6 years old, drilled into them that if they ever for 1 second, even as adults, thought about going back to live with me or being with me at any time in their life, that it would mean deadly consequences for them. They took that threat to their lives very serious. And so even though I literally have a 2-bedroom condo, open wide bedroom for my son and my daughter to come home at any time, and offered it every single time, it was in their head and in their mind that if they ever came and stayed with me at any time, that it would mean deadly harm to them. So they never came, they never did it. And he also reiterated the idea that he was the only one, he was the greatest father in the world, and he was the only one who could properly take care of them. And so they believed that. And so even as adults, we have never, ever, ever stayed together, even though that was always an option on the table. So this comment says, "Lady, I am not in the habit of judging people. Your son's story is a sad one. My prayers and condolences, as if he is dead. He is not. To him, I will say that you're the blame for most of this thing you're taking responsibility for." So let me just say this right out. I take 110% responsibility for what happened to my children. I am in no way just blaming my ex for everything that happened, okay? So yes, I was a 22-year-old, really, really dumb college student in a domestic violence situation with a narcissist sociopath. It was one of my first relationships, long-term relationships ever, and I did a whole lot of things wrong. I will not back away from some of the things I did because they were dumb. Flat out, they were stupid, they were ignorant, but I was also in fear. I was also being threatened. My children were being threatened. I did not have a lot of money to get a divorce when I got a divorce, okay? But I did. I made that money up. I was able to get a divorce. I was able to get away. And people said, wow, why did you leave your kids with him? So many other things. But I'm just saying that, again, a lot of the decisions I made, knowing what I know now, I would have never made those decisions, but I did. And I'm being vulnerable, of course, in telling you my story. It is okay for you to judge me. I judge me every single day, but to say that I'm not taking responsibility, that's a little harsh because I am. I have to live with knowing that the one thing that I've always wanted, which is to be a mother, that number one thing I never got to be.
We listen and we don't judge, but we may judge.
And flaws. Thank you for picking out my bad decisions, and thank you for absolutely judging me. I put my life out there for you to do so have at it. But just know that I have to live with this. Is a real life. This is every single day, and I have to deal with it every single day of my life. So the question is, why in
The report. On June 21st, 2025, Officer Sibley, responded in emergency mode to 400 block West Tift Avenue in reference to a shooting. Upon arrival, I made contact with the caller, victim number 1, who was standing by outside of the incident location. Victim number 1 stated his son, victim number 2, was shot and he was inside of the residence incident location, 400 block West Tift Avenue. Upon entering the residence, I observed Shelton Johnson on top of victim number 2, applying pressure to a gunshot wound to the neck. Victim number 2 was conscious and breathing, advising he couldn't feel his legs and that he was in pain. Victim number 2 advised he shot himself with no further explanation. I observed victim number 2 start to close his eyes as if he started to lose conscious. I could not locate the firearm used in this incident at this time due to it not being in clear view. Lieutenant Arlene responded to the incident location and notified investigations and IDENT. The scene was secured with crime scene tape for pictures to be later taken by crime scene investigators. While remaining on scene, I made contact with victim number 1 again, which resulted in him advised he and victim number 2 got into an argument. Victim number 1 stated victim number 2 had been battling a mental disorder for the last 5 years. Victim number 1 stated victim number 2 was released from the crisis center approximately 4 days prior to today, June 21st, 2025. Victim number 1 stated victim number 2 was allowed back into the incident location, which resulted in him, victim number 2, not cleaning behind himself. Victim number 1 stated he would advise victim number 2 to clean up, which would result in an argument. Victim number 1 also stated today's incident began after he advised victim number 2 that he needs to do better around the house with maintaining the cleanliness of the residence. Lieutenant Arlene Victim number 1 also stated today's incident began after he advised victim number 2 that he needs to do better around the house with maintaining the cleanliness of the residence. Victim number 1 stated victim number 2 started to yell and get close to his face, which resulted in him pushing victim number 2. Victim number 1 stated after he pushed victim number 2, victim number 1 was punched several times in the face and head area. Victim number 1 stated after he was struck, victim number 2 walked away, and that is when he heard a gunshot. Victim number 1 stated he then ran outside of the residence and called the police, which resulted in us responding. Victim number 1 stated he didn't know what happened because it happened so fast. While remaining on scene, Shelton was taken in custody based on the knowledge that he possessed the firearm later stated by victim number 1. EMS 1 responded to the location and transported victim number 2 to Phoebe, 417 West 3rd Avenue. Crime scene investigators responded to the scene shortly to photograph the scene and collect any evidence needed. I assisted crime scene in locating the shell casing left on scene. Crime scene turned the residence incident location back over to victim number 1. An NCIC/GCIC check was conducted on all parties involved which yielded negative results for being wanted. This case is tuned over to investigations.
Hey guys, it's Rita, and this right here is my ex. He's the one who orchestrated the plot to have my son shot and left for dead. If you are not familiar with the series, definitely go back and watch the videos. But in a nutshell, people had the number one question of why. Why would somebody like him want to shoot in his son and leave him for dead? Well, I did post the full police report so that you can break that down. And the internet aunties and uncles, investigators, are going to have a field day with that one. But let's get back to him. He shot him for no reason at all. When I say no reason at all, I really mean that. He shot him, or he had him shot, or there was a shooting because my son didn't keep the house clean, or he didn't keep his room clean. So he had to scold him. He had to reprimand him. He had to let him know who was in charge, because ain't no way in the world that you should have a dirty room. You should die. You should be unalive because your room is not clean. That is the reason why my son was shot. Okay? Now, let's get down to the details. So, I went to Albany, Georgia today. I did. And because I needed to get all of the details. So when I'm telling you guys this story, I needed you to know every single detail, because it's so important to understand how he just literally got away with attempted murder. Here's that the boyfriend allegedly, was sick and tired of the back and forth between his lover and his lover's son, and he wanted to do the heroic thing and help save him and shoot my son for justice for his lover. That's the way it's set up. But according to the footage, you can't see who shot the gun whatsoever. So after the gun is shot, my son goes down. This guy right here, like a fuck ass coward he is, runs out and waits for the police to make sure that he establishes an alibi that his lover was the one that shot him. He didn't just establish an alibi that his lover was the one that shot him. He had to ensure that they knew that he was the one. So this fuck ass nigga literally made sure that he gave the ring camera footage to the cops to say, look, he has a gun on camera. Don't you find that suspicious? Okay. So anyway, everyone in the house is questioned. Everyone in the house is, questioned about exactly what happened. So the boyfriend says, look, I didn't do this, but I would do anything for him because I love him. That is my man. I love him, and he's ruined my life twice. So, it is what it is. That's my boo. We evil twins together. So, whether he did it or not, the boyfriend saying, I'm going to take the rap because that is my man, and we ride or die. But you dying and he riding. So they went to the hospital, and you have to know something about this psychotic CIA level narcissist mentalist, okay? What you need to know about this man is he can look at you. He can stare you down and put the fear of God in you in a way that's uncanny. And he goes to the hospital like an endearing father, and he waits till detectives get to the location, and they're talking to my barely unconscious son, and they're saying, well, did your father shoot you? And he looks at him, and he's just like, no, scared as fuck. And then They say, well, did the boyfriend shoot you? And he looks at this fuck ass nigga again, and like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you look at the police report, analyze the police report, which I'm also gonna post again after this, you really are gonna be like, what the fuck? Like, huh? So initially they said he shot himself, but then later the boyfriend shot him. And then they didn't know where the shots came from. It just magically appeared like Lucky Charms. So in a nutshell, the detective said, well, we have the smoking gun, literally, and the boyfriend is overly excited to plead guilty in self-defense of defending his lover against his horrible son that was literally ravaging his dad. This man right here prides himself, y'all, on evading police. He prides himself on evading law enforcement and tricking judges and tricking public defenders and stuff like that. And he's like a slippery worm. He is. And he has success. Like, it should be studied. And my last thought is, Annalise, Keaton should absolutely have him on the next season of How to Get Away with Murder, because this is about his, sixth time or so, just literally handling the cops and handling police. So if you encounter him, he knows how to untalk or overtalk anybody. It's really fascinating at this point that my own son will never get justice off his father doing the most foul, dirtiest, down low right thing in the world that a father can ever do to a child. But you know what? The blessing is that my son will always be taken care of. And he will never have to worry, ever have to worry about not feeling loved or protected or seen or heard, because that's what real parents who love their kids do.
Who's calling it?
Alright, so it says, responded in emergency mode, West Tiff Ave, in reference to a shooting. Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book. We're going to try to get this together. Upon arrival, I made contact with the caller, victim number one, who was standing by outside the incident location. Victim number one stated his son, victim number two, was shot and he was inside the residence. Okay, so there was not two people shot. There was one person getting beat up, which was the dad, and the victim number two was the one who got shot. But I thought I heard something say, it says, upon entering the residence, I observed Shelton Johnson on top of victim number two, applying pressure to a gunshot wound on the neck. Victim number two was conscious and breathing, advising he couldn't feel his legs and that he was in pain. Victim number two advised he shot himself with no further explanation. What? I observed victim number two start to close his eyes as if he started to lose consciousness. So I don't get that. I don't get why the son would say he shot himself. That makes absolutely no sense. But now reading it, I understood, because that AI voice, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. So here's the boyfriend, Shelton Johnson. Who was doing the bending, goddammit.
An Albany father makes his teenage daughter walk to school while he posted on Facebook. It was all to teach her a lesson. He says his daughter's excessive phone use makes her late for school and has nearly cost her job. WALB News 10's Denisha Pearson spoke with the father, who says people called the police on him, but he says he was only trying to discipline his child.
Mine is walking all the way to school this morning because she thinks this life revolves around her.
Desmond Searcy says his daughter stayed up too late using her cell phone, so when she missed the bus Friday, he took matters into his own hands, literally.
This is my child, and I'm going to break some stuff up out of her.
I don't want people to think that I'm just this horrible parent that's out here just abusing my daughter and treating her wrong or anything like that.
Searcy says people in Albany called authorities when he tried to make her walk to Westover High School in the rain.
So I have been telling her for days and weeks and months, you're 17 now. Life is going to bite you in the butt if we don't nip this in the bud. Now, the next time anything like this happens with this cell phone, there's going to be consequences.
Searcy, who trailed his daughter as she walked from their Gillianville Road apartments, has been raising his 20-year-old son and his daughter alone for 13 years.
And then on top of that, your supervisor wants to fire you at work for being on your cell phone and just a whole myriad of things. So I decided to let her walk to school this morning.
He says his daughter has a 3.5 GPA and he plans to keep it that way. He tells me she's a good kid, but she hasn't been listening to him for the last 3 years, something he wants her to learn before she goes to college next year.
But if you can't follow the rules at home, you're going to have difficulty following the law. And once these police get a hold to these kids, and you've seen the viral videos, people are being shot, people are being beat.
Searcy said this life lesson was interrupted after he was stopped by Daugherty County Police. He says they stopped him at a church not far from his apartment and made him drive her the rest of the way.
Ultimately, I want my daughter to know, and I want everybody in the city to know, I love my children. I promise I do. But what I'm not going to do is raise a child that society says is not a productive component to society, and then that makes it look bad on me.
Reporting in Albany, Denisha Pearson, WALB News 10.
When you feel like giving up, when you thinking about giving, when they tell you you can't.
Say hi, Mom.
I'm sorry.
Can you say hi, Mom? Oh, yeah, girl.
You said you fighting, baby?
Yeah. I'm fighting a lot of I can't.
We're very proud of you, Akil.
Okay, go back to sleep. Okay.
We're very proud of you.
Say hi, Mom.
Yeah, cause I pray for love.
His daughter walked to school.
Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy situation there we have right here, man. I'ma just say my piece and we gonna just leave it at that, man. Mother, as much as I understand you are a mother and you still love your son and your daughter and everything, and we know that the father ain't much of anything, but ma'am, you left your kids. Now, I'm not gonna beat you down any more than life has at this point. But I have to say, at some point, you should have figured this stuff out. Cause why you owe somebody $69,000 and you can't get a lawyer to get your kids back? There should have been more to it. There should have been a lot more to it than just there was no drugs involved with the mom. There was no drugs involved with the mom. The mom was actually doing things to try to get her life better. I'm pretty sure she was in a lot of tough situations where she had to make a decision for her to leave her kids. Excuse me. Just burped in y'all face and it tasted like a burger. But the fact that this father was beating these kids from the time they were toddlers to young adults, putting fear in their heart, man, you gotta fight harder. You got to fight harder. It's so many things. It was so many red flags in this story. Like, she knew as a freshman that this man had tendencies. In fact, though, I think the reason why he used to beat his son is because of the traumatic situation that happened to him. Everybody, please hit that like button. and we're going to church on y'all. This man didn't like his own son because of the traumatic situation he went through in his life. He didn't do this to his daughter. This man used this lady to bear children, and he continued to live a promiscuous lifestyle with the same sex. Although she said, I have to get out of this marriage, and she did, she left the main component. She didn't take no money. She didn't take no dignity. She didn't expose his lifestyle. All she did was take her stuff and leave. And when she did, she left her kids. The most important thing she could have left was the kids. And just, I don't even know if she went on about her life, because I don't think she went on. I don't think she ever had anything to recover from. I don't think she had it all together. The father is not in jail. The father's boyfriend is in jail. The father's boyfriend is taking the charge for the father. The fact that the father's boyfriend is sitting in jail and saying, I'm doing this for him, is letting everybody know that they arrested the wrong man. And he's still free. And guess what? If he goes to trial, he could possibly beat this case, because there was no gun residue found on his hand. Also, he admitted to, being a ride or die. So he's going to get off for this shooting. And you know one person who ain't even been arrested yet? Captain Sassy Pants. I mean, in this video, you can clearly see he's sweet as all outdoors. He's sweet as a fresh fruit. And why she married him, I have no idea. Why she not only had one kid, but two, I have no idea. Because you start to see this. I think people change from high school to being adults, but you start to see the signs if they like the same sex over and over and over. When she seen him sleeping with the pastor, that should have been enough. That wasn't even enough. She stayed. In fact, I think she said she went back. She went back. Girl, what you go back for? But, this guy's obviously a master manipulator. And, karma and life is going to catch up with you. So just be a good person. And if you sense abuse in your significant other of any kind, I know a pamper. If he beat him with a pamper that hadn't been peed in yet, that's not so bad. But if you beat him with a pamper that had pee in it, you know how heavy them things is? I could knock my kid smooth over with a full pissy pamper. And the fact that she stuck around, she left and came back, and then left her kids with him again, knowing about all this abuse, she failed her kids. She said, my son knows that he's going to receive more love, or he'll never be left again. Ma'am, you should have did that 10, 15 years ago. This shooting is recent. I think the shooting happened on June, what was that, 15th or something like that? June 5th. This is a recent story. This just happened in June. So, prayers out to the family. Again, I'm going to find the GoFundMe, and I will post it in the description if anybody wants to donate. Also, you can see Just Save My Son on TikTok, and you can donate there. It would be appreciated. You know what I'm saying? Just tell everyday people come in a show our support if y'all want to. You know what I'm saying? I'm not asking y'all. I'm not begging y'all. I'm just saying if you want to, if you find the kindness in your heart to forgive this lady and know that, you know, she's not perfect and that, you know, she's blessed to even have her son make it this far. You know, let's pray for him. Everyday people, man, thank you all for joining in. I got so many good videos. I got some, you know, rare or, you know, so-so videos. But I do got some good videos that I want y'all to see. I'm not sure if I want to drop one tomorrow or I want to wait and keep them in line because I got a bunch of videos. But, you know, I just got some that's more intriguing, and I hope that, you know, with these videos we opening up y'all's mindsets. And also, like, this is what, the third crazy family situation in a row. Yo, we got to do better in the family dynamics. Even if y'all not like in love, we got to do better with family dynamics. If y'all not together, y'all made a child and y'all separate for whatever reason, we got to do better. Men, we got to do better. Men, we can't be abusers. We need to find something. We need to find a better way to love. We need to find a better way to punish our children, making them walk in the rain. It's tough love, but you know, we not in that era no more. It's time to use your words. It's time to make an understanding. Take her phone away. Making her walk and publicly embarrassing her on Facebook is crazy. In fact, if the video is still up, it's even crazier. Everyday people, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Thank you for watching.